Every year, thousands of penguins make the same journey. Across the frozen edge of the world, through biting winds and blinding white, they move together as one. A living river of black and white, flowing toward the ocean, toward survival, toward purpose, but sometimes one doesn't. Somewhere in that vast, frozen silence, a single penguin stops. It pauses at the edge of the colony, and then without warning it turns around. Not toward the sea, not toward food, not toward life. It begins walking inland, deeper into the ice, away from everything it has ever known. No food, no water, no colony, no destination that any scientist has ever been able to confirm. Just endless, merciless ice, stretching to the horizon in every direction. And yet it keeps walking, step after deliberate step, as if it knows exactly where it is going, as if something somewhere is calling it forward. The temperature drops, the wind howls, the colony disappears behind it, and still it walks toward certain death. The question that has haunted researchers for decades, the question that has no clean or comfortable answer, is simply this. Why? The farther it walks, the harder survival becomes. Every step inland is a step away from the ocean, away from the fish that sustain life, away from the breeding grounds where the next generation begins. There are no fish beneath this ice. There are no sheltered coves, no rocky shores, no familiar sounds of crashing waves. There is nothing here that a penguin needs to survive. No obvious destination, no visible reward, and yet it keeps going. Scientists studying emperor and Adelie penguins in Antarctica have documented rare but consistent cases of individuals leaving their colonies and heading deep into the continent's interior. Not lost, not circling back, moving with what appears to be deliberate, sustained direction. The behavior has been filmed, it has been tracked, it has been studied across multiple research stations spanning decades of observation. And still, the scientific community cannot offer a single unified explanation for what drives this behavior. Some of these penguins travel miles before they are no longer visible on any monitoring equipment. Miles of frozen, featureless terrain with no biological reward at the end. Which raises the question that every researcher eventually confronts. What could possibly be worth dying for? What signal, what instinct, what invisible force could override every survival mechanism that millions of years of evolution have carefully built into this animal? To understand how extraordinary this behavior truly is, it helps to understand how ordinary penguin life normally looks. Most penguins spend their entire existence following a deeply predictable and remarkably efficient routine. They find food in the ocean, diving to extraordinary depths to chase fish and krill through freezing dark water. They avoid predators, leopard seals beneath the surface, skua birds above it, navigating threats with instincts sharpened over millions of years. They raise their chicks through brutal Antarctic winters, taking turns standing over eggs in temperatures that drop to -40 degrees, huddling together in massive groups to share warmth and survive conditions that would kill most other animals within hours. And then they return to the sea, season after season, year after year. The same cycle repeated with extraordinary precision. The colony is not just a social preference. It is a survival mechanism. There is safety in numbers. There is warmth in proximity. There is knowledge passed between generations about where to find food, when to breed, how to navigate. Leaving the colony is not a neutral decision. It is a decision that removes every advantage the animal has. So what makes some individuals suddenly abandon everything? Could they be lost? Could some disruption in their internal compass send them walking in the wrong direction without any awareness that they are heading toward death rather than life? Could confusion explain what looks on camera like deliberate and sustained movement? Or is something else happening entirely? Something that science has not yet found the language to describe? Scientists have proposed several theories over the decades, each one attempting to place a rational framework around behavior that resists easy explanation. The first theory centers on illness. Certain parasites and infections are known to alter animal behavior in dramatic and counterintuitive ways. A sick penguin might experience neurological disruption that interferes with its magnetic navigation system, sending it walking in the wrong direction with complete physiological confidence that it is heading the right way. The second theory involves injury. A penguin that has been wounded, perhaps by a predator encounter or a collision with ice, might experience pain or disorientation that separates it from the group and sends it moving away from the colony rather than toward it. The third theory focuses on environmental interference. Shifting magnetic fields, unusual weather patterns, or changes in the ice landscape itself might confuse navigation in ways that are invisible to human observers, but catastrophic for the animal experiencing them. Each of these theories carries genuine scientific weight. Each one is supported by at least some observational evidence. But none of them fully solve the mystery, because some of the penguins that have been documented making this fatal inland journey appear completely healthy. No visible injury, no obvious signs of illness, moving with energy and apparent purpose. And that is where things get even stranger, because if the animal is healthy, if its body is functioning as it should, then something else is driving this behavior, something that goes deeper than disease or damage. The farther inland the penguin travels, the more dangerous the journey becomes, and the more impossible the outcome grows. There is no food beneath the interior ice. The fish are gone. The ocean is behind it, growing more distant with every hour. There is no shelter from the wind that tears across the plateau at speeds that can knock a human being off their feet. There is no chance of reproduction, no possibility of contributing to the next generation, no biological legacy waiting at the end of this walk. Only isolation, only silence. Only the vast, indifferent white of a continent that does not care whether any single creature lives or dies. And yet it continues walking, day after day, through storms that reduce visibility to almost nothing, through cold that deepens with every mile gained in elevation, through exhaustion that must be building in its muscles, in its reserves of fat, in the biological fuel that was meant to carry it through a very different kind of journey, as if following a destination that nobody else can see, as if responding to a signal that exists outside the range of any instrument that human science has yet invented. Researchers who have watched this behavior describe a particular quality to the movement that is difficult to articulate but impossible to ignore. The penguin does not appear confused, it does not wander, it does not circle, it walks in a direction, sustained, committed, as if it has already arrived somewhere in its mind, and its body is simply catching up. In some of the most remarkable recorded cases, researchers positioned at remote Antarctic monitoring stations watch these penguins continue for miles across terrain that offers nothing. The footage is quiet. There is no dramatic music in the original recordings, just the sound of wind and the small, dark shape of a single animal moving across an enormous white canvas, never turning back, never pausing to reconsider, never rejoining the colony that is still visible in some early footage as a dark mass on the distant horizon. The behavior appears almost impossible to explain within the frameworks that scientists typically use to understand animal decision-making. Animals are, in the most fundamental biological sense, survival machines. Every behavior that persists across generations does so because it increases the likelihood of survival and reproduction. Behaviors that consistently lead to death without any reproductive benefit should, over time, be eliminated from the population. And yet this behavior persists. It has been documented across multiple penguin species, across multiple decades, across multiple research programs, operating independently of one another, which is exactly why it continues to fascinate the scientific community, not because it is common, it is not, but because it exists at all, because it happens with enough regularity to be documented and studied, suggests that there may be something happening here that current science is not yet equipped to fully understand. Eventually the journey ends. It always ends the same way. Without access to food, without the ocean, without the colonies' shared warmth, survival becomes impossible. The Antarctic interior is one of the most hostile environments on the surface of the planet. It holds the record for the lowest natural temperature ever recorded on Earth. The air is so dry it pulls moisture from living tissue. The wind carries cold that penetrates insulation that would protect most animals in any other environment on the planet. For a penguin that has been walking for days, burning through fat reserves that were never meant to fuel an inland expedition, the body begins to fail. Quietly. Without drama. The way most things end in Antarctica. Not with violence, but with stillness. The temperature drops below what the body can compensate for. Movement slows, then stops. For these penguins, there is no rescue. No researcher has ever successfully intervened in time to change the outcome, and there is genuine scientific debate about whether intervention would even be appropriate, given how little is understood about what drives the behavior in the first place. Only silence remains. The wind continues. The ice continues. The vast white landscape absorbs the story of one small animal and carries no record of it forward. Perhaps one day scientists will fully understand why this happens. Perhaps advances in neurological imaging, in genetic analysis, in the study of animal cognition will eventually reveal a mechanism that explains everything. Perhaps there is a reason hidden deep within penguin biology, some ancient instinct left over from a time when the Antarctic landscape looked completely different, when walking inland led somewhere meaningful rather than somewhere fatal. Or perhaps the answer lies in something that science has not yet thought to look for. The history of biology is full of behaviors that seemed inexplicable until the right question was finally asked. And perhaps some mysteries will remain unsolved for longer than any of us expect. That uncertainty is not a failure of science. It is an honest acknowledgement of how complex living systems truly are. But it is also what makes this story so haunting, because at the center of it is not a statistic or a data point. At the center of it is a single animal moving with apparent purpose across a landscape that offers it nothing, following something that only it can perceive, toward an end that no one who watches it can prevent. And the question it leaves behind is one that lingers long after the footage ends. Not just why did the penguin leave, but what does it mean that we still do not know? Thousands follow the same path every year. The Great Migration continues, season after season, colony after colony, generation after generation. The ocean calls and the penguins answer, moving together in the way that has kept the species alive through ice ages and warming periods and every catastrophe the planet has thrown at them across millions of years. But occasionally one chooses a different direction. One stops at the edge of the known world and turns away from everything that makes survival possible, and walks, and nobody truly knows why. Subscribe to FactZoo TV Official for more wildlife mysteries and animal documentaries.